say, okay, we understand where we can extract value out of that, and stick with the fact that as the world accelerates into AI, you know what you can't do AI with? The plane.
The water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secrets.
Nik Tarascio, thanks so much for coming on Founder Secrets.
My pleasure. Great to be here.
Yeah, so we'll kick things off with an icebreaker. Nick, Flavia, and I have all known each other for a while through EO and kind of seen your founder's journey, and so it'll be a good time to talk about it.
Yeah, man, looking forward to diving in.
All right, the icebreaker for today is a surprise, which is, since you have, for those of you that aren't watching the video, he's got a whole guitar set, black guitars too, very cool in the background. So I wanted to ask, what's kind of the song that gets you like really most riled up, you know, like when you're like, all right, I need some energy to crush some work or workout or whatever it is in your life, like what's kind of that one song that just like does it?
Man, it's going to be unexpected. I wanted to go with something like Slipknot, but in reality, I think it's more like Chopin, like just the heartbreak, Chopin piano, like the level of heartbreak in it. And it's like, when you have that level of heartbreak, you want to change something. You want to do something. So I would say it's that. It makes me like...
Which Chopin?
What is Chopin?
Like any of the nocturnes for the most part are going to... Taylor, would you say, who is Chopin?
Yeah, I don't know who that is.
Oh, Chopin is like this amazing composer, pianist who has these beautiful like right-hand melodies on the piano that are just like, if someone experienced someone stabbing a hole in their heart and it came from their most loved person, it was the biggest betrayal. That's Chopin put to music, basically. And so, yeah, something about that. I'm like, wow, the intensity in a piano is so good, and that makes me want to change things.
That's really good. I can go second.
Where do we go from there? I don't
yeah,
even
no
know.
kidding. Mine's gonna be very different. So I looked at my Spotify and I was like, what do I repeatedly play? And I think since I was a teenager, a song or really a group that can really rile me up is the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I think that if I had to pick one Red Hot Chili Pepper song, maybe it's Californication, you know, kind of any of the bangers, any of the 5, 6, 7 of their big ones. I think Red Hot Chili Peppers, when it comes on, it's just amazing. Gets me riled up, and it never gets old. You know, we've been listening to these same Red Hot Chili Pepper songs for 20 years, and at least for me, they don't get old.
For me, it's Avicii, like Wake Me Up, but also other Aviciis. I just think Avicii, rest in peace, captured some of the way of turning music. I think it's like musical amphetamines. He somehow managed to capture like a level of energy in the way he made music that no other person, I think, has been able to consistently do across their discography. All right, so back to you, Taylor.
So Nick, you have this very interesting, I'd like to hear a little bit about like growing up in the aviation business. You say that, say on LinkedIn, that you earned your license to fly solo and mechanic certification at 16. You were piloting jets at 19. You kind of grew up in the aviation business. I'd like to know, do you think that you love this business because you grew up in it and you were kind of pushed into it? Like if you had not grown up in it, would you still love it today? And maybe you could talk a little bit about the early days learning the business.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I will clarify, I don't love the business, right? Like I think that's what's become more of a clarification for me is aviation as a business is a hard business. It's something that I think is a calling and it's a passion, and the people that do it are often underpaid for their efforts. I should have started an SEO or SEM company or something like that with recurring revenue streams and lots of credit card points. But aviation in and of itself is so aspirational and inspirational that it's that aspect of it that I'm really drawn to. So growing up around it was honestly really confusing. It was really confusing because I thought, like, I tell this story a lot. When I was in 3rd grade, first day of school, my teacher said, "What did you do over the summer?" And I said, "I flew a plane." And she goes, "No, you flew in a plane." I said, No, I actually flew the plane. I was in the front. I logged the time. And she called my mom and said I was a pathological liar, essentially. I didn't know. I thought like every kid, like their parents had cars, and I thought they drove their cars to their airplanes in the way some people drive their cars to their boats. Like, I have no idea, right? It's just like that was part of my experience. So I would say like, I love the idea that you could create connection and just play with time and space using an airplane as a tool to do that as a kid. Like we flew to Disney World. I get to go to Disney. Like, how cool is this? Right. Like it was all these great things. But it was very disorienting because I saw like the top 0.01% of people. I saw all these different worlds. My dad's job was essentially life and death, right? It's like some people's jobs, like, oh, my dad fell off his chair at work today. Like that's as bad as it gets. Like my dad's facing all these really difficult things. So it was a really crazy environment to grow up in. And I think it anchored that, like, I mean, we're all entrepreneurial. So we all like stress. We all like choose to be in stressful situations because boredom feels like worse than stress, would be my guess.
So your dad, what was his job?
So he started a flight school when I was 2. I mean, just imagine, like, think of what this really is. If you break it down to its fundamentals, you're giving people an airplane to go train in, and they become newly licensed. And then you're renting them that plane to go like, yeah, go ahead, go poke around in the sky with this piece of metal and just don't mess it up. I know you don't have a lot of experience yet, but just like, be good. So we had a fleet of, like, at the peak, I think 20 or something little flight school planes that people would rent from us, and they would train in, and they would make mistakes, and they would do all kinds of weird things with them. We're like, why would you do that with an airplane? Right. So it's like, by nature, it's a high entropy business. Let's put it that way.
And what happened to the business?
We ran it till 2017, I believe, when we decided it was too much entropy, right? It was, we have a flight school and a maintenance division, an avionics shop and a charter company. And we had all these different businesses going. And what we looked at is, for the same hour of effort I could put into the jet company, where we could make thousands of dollars, we could make $20 doing that in the flight school.
So flight school is a bad business.
Not entirely, but if you're doing a lot of different things, it was a bad business for us. And the particular segment we were in and the way we were doing it, we would have had to completely overhaul the business model to make it really make sense. And so, yeah, we had to do, our heart was still in it. I love teaching people to fly. I love the idea of, like, you guys can now go become pilots within 6 months. That would be awesome. It is too crazy when you're trying to do those other things as well. At least that was our position.
I guess I'm just so shocked that this this is your experience. You're right. It's so different than others. So then you got into the business. Is it the same business that your father started, or you kind of started a new business?
So it was really taking the torch and running with it, and then really changing the shape of the business entirely through the pandemic. So essentially, you know, again, I grew up around all these little flight school planes, and then like little jets started showing up, and it's just like everything started growing. There was a certain point where I was like, well, I was building my dad's dream, right? Like I was like just the guy who was like, I'm a tool that helps build my dad's dream. That's what I told myself. And then in 2019, I was like, wait, this is dumb. Now I can build my vision. Now I can actually make it the company I want it to be. So over the last 4 years, it has completely changed shape from what it used to be.
How did he feel about that?
It was really beautiful, actually. I had told him that I felt a lot of responsibility around this, and I was trying to honor generation 1 while building generation 2. And he said, like, I just worry that I get in the way. Like, I worry that I'm getting in your way. And I was like, wow, that is not the typical family business story. Usually it is like, I will be in your way until I'm dead. Like, I am never moving. This is my business.
I want to be in your way.
That's right. That's right. I will make it a point. I'm always in your way. But no, it was amazing. Like, both of my parents, they admitted, like, I mean, you guys might know the E-myth, right? From the EO community, this whole thing of like, just because you're good at a particular entrepreneur, just because you're good at a skill doesn't mean you should go be an entrepreneur, build a business in that thing. My parents admit, like, they just like fixing and flying airplanes and working with airplanes. They do not love building businesses and sitting in management rooms and leading middle management teams and all that stuff. That's not ever their desire. So they were really cool about, actually, there was a moment where I kicked my parents off the management team, and my dad's answer was like, I don't have to come to these stupid meetings anymore. I was like, no, you can go work on airplanes. He's like, awesome. That's why I got into this business.
My understanding of the aviation business, that's very boom and bust. And during, you know, boom times, you make a lot of money, but during down times, it's very kind of challenging. Is that correct? And can you kind of speak to maybe the cycles of the business or the industry?
Yeah. So I'll start with, I have a friend that was a quant trader. He said when they analyzed aviation since 1903, which was the Wright brothers flight, they found that aviation as a whole was a net loss, which he said means it's a gift to humanity, right? Aviation as a whole is a gift to you. Now, some people make money. A lot of people don't. You've heard the jokes. If you want to make $1 million, start with 5 in aviation, right? There's a reason that we say that. It is something about this industry pulls people in, and it's where they go like, I already made $100 million in my exit. Like, I want to go build an aviation company because that's my passion. That's my calling. That's my excitement. So now imagine being a middle-class family competing with those people, right? Where they're like, I don't know, I'll just drop another $1 million in the business if we're not making money. I'm like, whoa, we can't do that. Like, we don't have that kind of budget. It is boom and bust, and it is chaos. And it's the reason why, like, we love aviation people, because they're crazy. Like, we're all crazy. We're all out of our minds saying, this is a worthy pursuit. It's a worthy place to go put our energy. There's other things we could do to make more money and have a more peaceful, balanced life. But there's something about fighting gravity. There's something about putting ourselves up there that makes us want to do it. So yeah, I would not recommend it if you were like, I want to go find a really good, sustainable, scalable business that has recurring revenue streams. I'd say, like, eesh, not the place to do it. But if you love what it is to play this crazy game, yeah, come and do it. It's a drug. There's nothing like it.
There's a whole ecosystem of people, right? So I know that there are some of these fly-in communities, right, where people who own jets live in. I mean, you'd be able to explain it much better than me, but there's like a landing strip, I guess, in the middle of a community, kind of like a golf community, but it's just for jet people all over the country. It seems like that there's a very impassioned group of people in this industry, or even a mindset. Maybe they don't even see it as an industry. Is that right? Like a fanatical group of people?
Yeah. And that's, I think, the reason. So they're called like fly-in communities. So you essentially have, again, all these houses that get built as developments around the airport. And you have a garage for your car and then a garage for your plane, and you taxi your little plane out and you go right to the runway and off you go. It makes a lot of sense because, again, pilots are a special breed. There is like a certain way of being, and it's nice to be around those people. Most are not in the business of aviation, right? They're just like, I am a dentist and I have a plane, or I'm an attorney and I have a plane, or whatever it is, right? So it's an extra kind of crazy to also be in the business of aviation, right? You're adding a second layer of crazy.
So let me just make sure I understand. Is Ventura, your company?
Ventura Air, yeah.
I'm sorry, Ventura Air. The ability to book a jet on demand. So if I need a jet today to go to like South Carolina, I'll go through you. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, I could probably have you a plane within an hour to two.
Here we go.
Now we're talking.
Yeah.
Before we book it, we should check price. But I remember there were, at least to my knowledge, none of these companies. But then it seems like in 2019, 2020, kind of like when you were saying about your pivot, just seems like, at least in my experience, a million of these companies came up, right? Like Blade started and they did helicopters and planes and JetSmarter and SmarterJet and Jets.com and Jets. Well, like, I feel like everything with Jet, it just became a company where you can book these. And then I learned that nobody actually owns the planes. These are all just like brokers, and there's like other people that actually do all the plane stuff in the background. They're just marketing apps to people to get them on these planes. So I guess my question is, first of all, is that accurate? And B, where do you play in that ecosystem?
Yes, there's people that are really good at marketing, right? There's people that figured out like, hey, there's a group of people that are hard to get to, like, right? These super, super high net worth people are very, very difficult to capture their attention and keep their attention. And it's also pretty hard to figure out how to work with airplanes and how to work with jets and operators and all that stuff, because there's a lot of people that do it, but how do you know who's good? How do you know who's not? So those people provide a value of saying, hey, I know how to reach those high net worth people and I know how to put them on the right plane. Again, very, very high standards for these customers. So those people, that's exactly what they do. They bridge the gap, and they're trying tech, they're trying people, they're trying to solve it at every different way. They're trying to democratize it, which I don't know how they'll do that, given that it's expensive. They're trying to say, can I put groups of people like Jet Suite X? It's can I put groups of people on a plane and create a shuttle experience, which isn't charter, but you could kind of call it charter. So there's all these different people trying to play the game. And we decided, hey, that's cool. I don't really want to play in that space because there'll be a lot of losers. And we'd rather just say, let's do what we're good at. We can fix and fly airplanes. We can make planes fly predictably, for relative terms, cost economically. We are not luxury operators. We are efficiency. It's like, hey, what is your goal? You want to get 7 seats to go from here to there? We want to do that, right? It's let's not worry about getting the newest brand new airplane because it doesn't affect safety. And there are plenty, like NetJets can go and sell you something that's $12,000 an hour. We'll sell that same thing to you for $7,000. So we're very much looking at like utility. I'd say we're a utility company. And because of that, we have made money, and it is boom and bust, but we've found a way to say, understanding where all the strange decisions are, we can use 40 years of experience to say, okay, we understand where we can extract value out of that, and stick with the fact that as the world accelerates into AI, you know what you can't do AI with? The plane, right? Yeah, it still needs people and it needs mechanics and it needs to fly through the air. So like the sales stuff.
So do you have deals with these salespeople, and then they send you leads sometimes to fly.
Now, when you say deals, what's interesting about it is that it's not deals in the way of like, hey, we're incentivizing them to do this. We built our company to be good for those people. Like we actually do it more on the fact that our direct customer is the broker, our end user is our secondary customer, right? The person on the airplane. So we basically treat it the way school programs are, like private schools, or the actual customer is the parent, but the experience of the child's the critical thing, right? So it's the same thing. The actual customer is the broker, but the experience of the person on the airplane is important.
How many brokers are there
in the country? The thousands and thousands. Any kid in a hotel, in like a college dorm can do that.
So then you have to work with all the brokers.
Not all of them. We want to choose good brokers, right? We don't want to deal with brokers that are bad at their job. And there's plenty of those people. Because again, all you have to do, if you know how to optimize a website, you're a broker tomorrow. Congratulations. Someone searches private jets and you're the one brokering flights. But you don't know how to actually prep the customer. You don't know how to match the right plane. And guess what? The customer's pissed at us now. So we really want to work with experienced, capable brokers that are playing the long game.
Because they have the relationships with these high net worth individuals. And is that right? Like that's kind of that's the good, or that's the value that they provide, really.
I couldn't build a sales team for less than what they take as part of the commission.
Can you speak to kind of misconceptions around private plane ownership, maybe what people have in their heads versus what the reality is? You know, in my head, I think of it as very, very expensive. Maybe that's true. I would assume that's probably somewhat true, at least. But what are the kind of the misconceptions that you found about?
I mean, there's a lot. It is expensive relatively, like I should say absolute, right? Absolute, it's expensive. Relative, it's not. So if you were moving 7 people somewhere, let's use, like we do a lot of New York, Florida on a mid-sized jet called the Citation Excel. So you look at it and you say, like, let's say that day we were able to link up a flight, and I'm just making a number, roughly $15,000. You go, for 7 people, that's actually not that bad, right? It's not that crazy. If you were moving one of your executive teams, what's their actual time worth? Like we undervalue that constantly. So like, all right, we took the whole executive team out of commission. We put them on an airplane. They got delayed at the airport. They lost a day. We had to put them up in hotels. How much productivity did we lose? You look at that and it's like, yeah, that's not that crazy. Or, hey, I need to move my family. How much better of an experience am I creating? Like it really is somewhat cost effective, but for the average person, no, it's not the right option for the average person. Mostly because also, like when I travel by myself for the most part. I'm not going to go on a private jet by myself. Like it just doesn't make sense to tie up a whole plane for that. But I'm also a pilot, so I could fly myself. So it's a different game.
And you have a bunch of planes. And so somebody once, like a few years ago, was like, hey, you should get into one of these jet ownership things because it'll reduce your taxes. Like there's some tax benefit to flying jets. Is this right? Can you share, like, what are the benefits? I know you're not a tax
for sure
attorney.
No, but I mean, we do this all the time. So, yeah. I mean, we're really getting into what our business model really is. At the end of the day, our actual core customer are aircraft owners or prospective aircraft owners. That is like, we're basically a two-sided marketplace on some level. So someone says to us, I want to buy a plane, or I want to fly private and I want to reduce my cost of flying private to the absolute minimum, right? No one really wants to own a plane just to own a plane, even though they say they do. They actually want to have the ability to fly private when they want. If you say to me, Taylor, hey, I want to fly private for less. Like I've decided I'm ready to make that jump. I go, great. You can go and buy a $3 million airplane and you could finance it for 20% down. It's like, okay, great. Totally understood. So we're tracking. What are we talking? It's $600,000 down, but you get to use bonus depreciation that year. So though you only paid out $600,000, you got to write off. And I think this year they might change the rules again, but it's 80% you could depreciate in year one. So you depreciated, what is that? $2.4 million that year off of your income. Now it has to be passive income. So it's great for like real estate people, investors, people that are getting a lot of passive income. You're like, wow, that's amazing. If I could offset that much tax incentive, this starts to be really attractive, because now think about all the money I'm actually putting in my pocket this year. So then you own the airplane, and like, this is the way our program works. You own the airplane, we take the plane from you. It becomes our plane for all practical purposes. We pay for everything. You pay no management fees, maintenance, any of the overhead. Like we cover all of that stuff. We crew it. We do the whole nine. When you want to fly it, you pay just for your direct operating costs that day. And that's it. And then we pay you for every hour that we fly charter with the airplane. So you're like, wait a minute, I get to offset my cost. I get a tax incentive. And I don't have to deal with maintenance bills. Correct. Right. So that's why people do this, though, is ultimately, if you're going to have a $5 million tax bill $5 million, like reportable income, you can in some cases offset that to almost zero.
So how does that work? So that's really good year one. How does it work year two? So I guess they would continue collecting income from you because you're basically leasing out the plane or flying the plane. So they collect some amount of income, but now they still have a loan on the So does it continue to pay off in that way, or it's not really a money maker or neutral for them, but they get access to this private plane, and that's really the value?
That's exactly right. So the way you look at it is, hey, for the total I spend on this airplane and the amount of hours I fly, this reduces my cost of flying to a very, very low number. And in some years, actually, what I'd say is with the pandemic, the prices of airplanes tripled in some cases. So buying in the middle of the pandemic, not a great time to buy, right? It's like you're not going to be able to really offset with the charter revenue that we can pay you. You're not going to be able to offset the note. 2019, you could have. If you bought in 2019, and there were some cases, and again, it's cyclical. So as the prices come down, there will be a point again where it's like, now's the time to buy, such that what we can afford to pay you for the use of your airplane will roughly cover it. It'll roughly say like your note's covered. Now you just have to pay to fly at cost when you fly.
Just to make sure I understand, you don't own the actual plane.
We own some of the planes, but our goal is we don't want to scale. Again, I can't scale fast enough because I only have so much tax I need to cover, right? I'm only going to buy as many airplanes as brings my tax burden to zero. Beyond that, I'm like, someone needs to buy these tax burdens. So buy planes and give them to us.
So somebody like, some investors like, hey, I'm going to make $2-3 million in their investment stuff, like a hedge fund this year. They're like, oh, you know how I should offset that income is by buying a plane.
That's right. And again, it's a lifestyle benefit. So anyone that comes to me and says, should I just buy a plane for investment purposes? I'm like, definitely not. Go buy anything else. But if you're like, hey, I've always wanted to fly private and I was going to kind of do this anyway, I just didn't want to spend as much money. Well, this is a great benefit. It's going to reduce that cost greatly. And I never, ever encourage someone to buy an airplane where they need the charter revenue to offset it to afford it.
How long do the planes last?
That's a bunch of different perspectives. So from an airworthiness perspective, 50 years, right? Like there are airplanes that are 50 years old that are flying today. From a market dynamics perspective or from a logistical cost perspective, realistically in the charter market, customers will generally go about 30 years on an airplane. Once a plane's older than 30 years old, they generally get into the like, I don't really want to fly that. I'd rather get something a little bit newer.
And do you get that bonus depreciation if you buy, it doesn't have to be a new plane. So you could spend the $3 million on a plane that's 5 years old or what have you, or it does have to be new?
No, any airplane you buy.
Oh, so you could buy a plane that's 15 years old or whatnot.
30, 50 years old, doesn't matter. You buy something from 1903.
Maybe not that one. And then they get the tax benefit. So they pay the 600, just so I understand the numbers, they pay 600,000 in cash because they had to pay the 20% down, like you said. The 2.4 million is a reduction in income, right? So if they were in a tax bracket of 30% or 40%, they don't actually get 2.4 million back, right? They get 40% of the 2.4. Is that the way the math kind of works out?
Exactly. So call that, and again, I'm questionable at math right now, but that would be what, $1.2 million back. So you put 600,000 in and you got $1.2 million of actual savings that year.
That's the trade.
Yeah, which is a pretty good deal. You're like, I'm 600,000 up from a cash position.
And they got revenue from, well, I guess they had to pay the mortgage equivalent on because they'd pay that for the first year too. I just think that the numbers are very fascinating to me. So then they own it and they'll continue owning it. And how much does it cost to fly a plane like that? Like just round numbers, if you own it like that.
So our mid-sized jets roughly are, it really depends on what the fuel price is that day, but generally it ends up being like $3,000 to $3,500 for an airplane that if you went out and you chartered it, you'd probably be closer to the 6,000 range. And there's other perks that come along with that.
That's per hour.
Yeah, 6,000 an hour. Yeah. And that's just flight time. You don't pay for when it's sitting on the ground generally.
And that's all in. So if they flew to Florida, they'd fly 2.5 hours or whatnot. So they'd pay 10 grand or less than that, 7 grand, 8 grand. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah. For rough numbers, that's what it is. And again, the other benefit is when you own your own airplane, there's other things that people don't realize, which is like, wait a minute, that plane needs 30 to 45 days of maintenance a year. What if I need to fly on those days? Or what if the plane breaks? What am I going to do? Now I have this expensive airplane that I can't use. So we built it that we have a whole pool of the same two types of airplanes. So even though you own a plane, your plane enters our pool. So it's like, don't worry, you're going to always be, even if your plane's in for maintenance, we're going to have other planes that can service you that are identical. So we tried to really create like a best of both worlds because again, being an owner of an airplane sounds awesome until you do it. And then you're like, whoa, I had no idea all these other things that came along with that. This is hard. It is hard to own an airplane.
Who handles like the liability if something bad happens on the plane? I assume there's insurance and things, but God forbid something terrible happens. Who kind of where's the liability rest?
With the charter company. And again, like the way it operates is I believe it's after 30 days when you do a lease of an asset like that, all of the liability shifts to the operator away from the owner.
Oh, because you lease it from them.
Yeah, we do a lease structure. We'll just say, hey, we'll do a lease that takes you, like you're off the hook.
You're the actual charter operator.
Yeah, we're an airline. Like the way to look at, we're actually the airline. We don't paint everything like Delta or whatever, but for all practical purposes, the airplane's entering an airline fleet.
So your entity is the one that takes the risk. You hire the pilots.
All of it. The operational risk, the cost risk, the insurance risk, the maintenance risk.
I love to talk about music. It seems like music's also a big part of your passion. How did that come about from aviation, or they're just two separate sides of you, or do you combine them?
I mean, there's a common thread between the two, but I think music for me, I mean, it was always there. Like I remember when I was a kid, I was watching MTV. I saw Axl Rose singing in an arena. I think it was like Paradise City might have been the music video. I was like, damn, that's cool. Like, that's really cool too. I mean, it's like speaking from stage, right? Like just that idea of like, you could command a room, you could command a crowd, you can create an experience. I always really loved that.
You're just picking like the coolest things, like airplane flying is cool. Being a rock star on stage is like the coolest. You're just picking like the absolute coolest things people can do. And you're like, I want to do those.
That's exactly right. I guess on some level, but it really came back to, in all of these cases, the common thread is you're trying to create an experience for somebody, right? If you're taking someone from A to B, you're trying to create an experience. If you're taking someone to a concert, that concert, they're trying to create an experience, right? So it's one moves you physically, one moves you hopefully emotionally. And I think that was the common thread for me, is that these are all just tools to create an experience for people.
Do you think that there are any crossovers between, so my father's a musician, and it requires a lot of work, and a lot of work that nobody sees, right? It's a lot of practice, do you think that marries well with entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship's a lot of work that nobody sees, a lot of things behind the scenes. Do you see similarities there, or they're just unrelated altogether?
So this again goes back to the distinction of business versus whatever the thing is, right? So to be in the music business, to be in the aviation business, that's very different from being an aviator or being a musician. And so I think to be a really great aviator and a really great musician, you guys ever seen like those young kids that play piano songs? You're like, that's so crazy that they could play it technically, but what's missing is the heart, like the emotional knowing. So I think that's that distinction. There are musicians where you're like, wow, your heart is in every note you play. Like you can't help but express yourself through that instrument. And then there's people that are like, I will technically play anything you put in front of me. You're like, cool, I could have just gotten a player piano and press play and created the same result. That's a big distinction. They both require a calling to be amazing at it, I believe. Actually, and business. I think business too. Aviation, music, and business. To be a true entrepreneur, it is a calling. I don't think you could go get an MBA and be like, I'm amazing at business now.
Probably the opposite. Can you expand on that? Like, do you think that that's why, we've all seen these AI music videos and like these, the Drake songs and this and that. And, the reality is that people tell me, and I think the same thing, I don't see my friends listening to those songs, right? Like they're technically cool, but people aren't playing it. And I wonder if it's for the same reason you're saying. There's no heart, because literally there's no heart. It was AI. So is there, do you think that's, like the emotions and heart, does that play a big part in what you choose to be passionate about?
I mean, for me, it's really important. I mean, what kind of comes up for me around that topic, do you know that, God, I can't remember who it was. It might've been Tim Urban talking about, as we've gotten closer, like Apple rendering people's faces on whatever the screen thing is now, the eye thing. Do you know that they were saying like when we're almost human, it's actually really creepy?
Uncanny valley.
Yeah. Uncanny valley, right? So as we're stepping into that, I think it's the same thing. We actually are like really turned off by almost human. We're fine with cartoons. I think real success for me to be able, like part of my driver for doing what I do is I want to have an impact on people. Like I said, I want to create an experience. And the only way that I believe people can truly do it at the highest level is to stay the hell away from Uncanny Valley and be like fully hard in, because we are such bullshit detectors. We can really feel it. And even if we don't know why, we're like, I don't know why my belly feels funny interacting with this product, service, company, individual, whatever that thing is. So I like to believe that the long-term winners are the ones that bring real authenticity and heart to it.
So do you play music regularly?
So like it comes and goes, but I mean, I do a lot of sound meditation. That's really where a lot of my musicianship has transformed. I record some music here and there.
What is sound meditation?
Sound meditation is like, you ever do a sound bath or anything like that? People playing gongs, bowls, chimes, vocalizing, chanting, all that kind of stuff.
I have done it once.
Yeah. So I'm a big believer in that work. So I guide like group journeys for people with just sound is such a powerful healing modality. And again, the same reason people go to a concert is the same reason people benefit from a sound meditation is we meet ourselves in relationship to music. And sometimes meeting ourselves is like, I can't meet myself because my head's going a million miles an hour. So I need to listen to Slipknot or whatever it is to like resonate with where I am with my chaos. So instead, if I could play chimes or a gong and downregulate your whole nervous system, maybe you can actually meet your real essence, not the part of you that is in survival, like your amygdala is hijacked, right? We think we're those things. And so I love this work because it helps people see like, actually, I'm good and everything's going to be okay. And when I'm in that space, I could be much more conscious of what I'm creating in the world.
They say you want to create an experience with both aviation but why is that important to you? Or it could be a negative experience, like maybe somebody's like having a terrible time. Experience could be anything. So I'm wondering like, why is that what you want to do?
If we want to go spiritual, we can go there because that's ultimately what it comes down to. Like, right. Why do we do anything? Like we have to come back. Why do anything? Right. Because we could follow first. It's like the safe business answer. I do it because I want to like increase shareholder value. Right. So we could start from that and say, well, why do we want to do that? I don't know. Because I want to feel validated because my parents never loved me. Right. And that's not true in my case, but like a lot of times we just follow this chain. So that's why I'm like, we're going to end up at the spiritual question. The spiritual question for me is, what is the purpose of us being here? Like, why do we spend all of this energy on anything we do, knowing that any of us at this point can stop everything we're doing, take our money and go live somewhere in the world and never have to work again, right? We're all in that position. If that's true, why do I keep working? So if you're familiar with something called the bodhicitta motivation, it's a Buddhist term. Bodhicitta basically says like, we're all here trying to have enlightenment. We're all here trying to figure out like, why do I exist? And if you truly experienced enlightenment, if you truly got to the place where you're like, oh my God, this is all great. We're all one and the same. The Beatles were right. All you need is love. Everything was true. This is just all big hearts open. The bodhicitta motivation says if you truly did awaken and you had an understanding of the nature of the universe, the only thing left to do would be to realize that everyone else is just an extension of you. And the only thing to do is to help them wake up. There's nothing else to do. If your life was just helping other people evolve, grow, overcome trauma, become better people, find the courage to love more, be happier, that's it. Like that's the whole game. And so for me, I believe that aviation is something that pulls people out of their story. It's something that connects people. Like we think of the world we live in, it's global because of airplanes. Yeah, the internet did a pretty good job of that, but really airplanes are what connect us, right? It's what allowed us to have this experience of being part of a collective. Like really see the stories, really go be in it. And so I think that's a beautiful way to do it. And then music to me is the nature of who we are. So I don't know. I go back to like look it up, bodhicitta. I don't know how to spell that, but it's a beautiful motivation that says everything I do is for the benefit of everybody.
So I'm just trying to understand. So if you were to wake up and fully understand all of the universe, they're saying that then the only thing to do is to help the other people wake up so they can realize the same thing.
That's right.
It's like the Matrix.
Why not just let them sleep? I guess it's harmful to like let people just be the way they are. Like, I guess what's the reason for like waking them up?
In the belief of the awakening experience is that you ever heard like when you hurt someone else, you're actually hurting yourself. And when you love someone else, you're actually loving yourself, right? So in the same way, if everyone is a part of you and you meet someone who's unconscious or asleep, you'd be like, oh, a part of me is asleep. Part of me doesn't know what it is. A part of me is not experiencing the full potential of joy. So I want to wake that part of myself up. And I mean, I honestly think business to me, of all the spiritual practices, I think business is the number one spiritual practice because it actually follows that motivation when done well.
Wow. How did you, so we'll kind of wrap here with the questions and then go into the hack. How did you come to some of the, like, these are very deep kind of thoughts or introspections. Was there a book or how did you kind of end up on this journey to uncover these things for yourself?
There are two things I hear constantly amongst entrepreneurs, right? And so this goes back to my original upbringing too. I was around people that had jets. Like if you want a jet, right? I'll know I made it when ... private jet story, right? I saw people that had everything. This is why I do the podcast. I saw people that had all the things. And you know what they didn't have? Fulfillment. So like, what's the point? Why are you doing that? Why are we chasing this thing if we don't have that feeling that we're whole or that we've got it, we did it, we won, we did enough? So I think growing up around that was kind of the first inkling of like, I live well beyond the average human that has ever lived, right? I've done more, I've experienced more, I have more privilege and just access. And yet I don't feel gratitude as much as I should. I don't feel fulfillment as much as I should. And I've always wondered, what the hell's my purpose? Why am I here? Why do we suffer this life? And so to make sense of it, I just started reading books and doing things like lucid dreaming practice and reading about Buddhism and just honestly asking everybody, I was like, who are the happy people? Can someone tell me who's actually happy? Because it's not the entrepreneurs.
Some of them are happy.
Yeah, go below the surface on that one.
Yeah, who are the happy people?
So honestly, you're right. There are some entrepreneurs that are happy. What I found is, and this was on one of my podcasts, people that believe in something outside of themselves index is way happier. So I was raised religious, got really angry with religion, became more spiritual, and found out that, yeah, all the things I rejected were actually, there's a truth to it. It's people that believe that they're part of something bigger. Like, and that's it. I was like, even if it's bullshit, even if they made it up, even if they're just like, I want to believe some made up lie so I could be happy. I'm like, I'm tired of being right. I'd rather be happy. Sign me up for that. So I think cultivating a practice of seeing yourself as part of something, like that's why I said, like, if you saw everyone as an extension of you, you're part of something. And, you know, like, I'm not just here to take care of myself anymore. I'm here to be in service. And I've noticed I've been happier and I like who I am. And I sound like a spiritual asshole sometimes, but I'm okay with that.
Well, as we wrap, we got to share one hack, one thing that we've discovered maybe recently that's made our life better. And I have one that's perfectly tied to this conversation. You probably already know it, Nik, which is Michael Singer has this podcast. Michael Singer wrote some famous books that escape me right now, but there he has one podcast that was at the beginning of this year. He had an episode that's very much in the spirit of the New Year's bonus episode. Every day gets lighter when you let go of yourself. Somebody recommended it. I listened to it, and he's just like, he's amazing. He's funny, but he's spiritual. But you're right, it doesn't come across like as an asshole. And so I think I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think he wrote The Surrender Experiment, and there was one other good one that is life-changing.
Wow. I've never heard of this guy. I'm writing this down. Mine is very different. I'm in the process of moving to Southern California. It's very overwhelming to think about. You know, you have all this stuff and there are these moving companies. And so my hack is that I did a lot of research and there's a cost-effective way to do it. Now, I have not yet done it. So they might burn all my things on the way to California, but so far it looks good. And it's that U-Haul, not the U-Haul that we all think of, but U-Haul bought this company and they have a product called U-Box, the letter U, B-O-X. And it's a way of, they're kind of like pods, but they're designed more for cities because they could fit in a parking spot here in the city. And so we ordered 2 U-Haul U-Boxes along with movers, because U-Haul also bought movers.com and it says marketplace for movers. And so they're fully vertically integrated. And so you click a button and it says, hey, do you want movers to come pick up all the stuff from your apartment? You're like, yep. And it gives you real-time pricing. So we got 2 U-Boxes. Each of them stores like a bedroom worth of stuff is kind of the net. 2 U-Boxes. We got the movers who are going to go pick up the U-Box from Staten Island, bring it here, pack all of our stuff, and then take it back. And they're going to move all the boxes. It takes 2 weeks, but they move the boxes to Southern California. The total cost is $3,400. For context,
oh my God.
For context, the bids that I saw were $10,000 to $25,000 to do this through like a traditional movers company. Yes, that's my hack.
I'm so glad you shared.
There
that.
we go.
I'm moving to Boulder soon, and I'm like stressed out, and that may be my solution. Thank you, Taylor.
U-Haul U-Box. I did so much research on this. I watched tons of YouTube videos. I read tons of Reddits. We booked it. So U-Haul U-Box. It's a good price. Oh, also they'll do storage too. So they'll just hold it as long as you'd like, and then you just tell them, hey, anywhere in the country, I would like you to dispatch that here, and they put it and they take it there. So
this episode paid for by
U-Haul U-Box. All right, Nik, do you have a hack for us?
So cool. Yeah. God, I have so many, but I'm gonna go with lucid dreaming. Like, it is such a hack. For those of you that say you don't have enough time in your day, you might not realize you could go into lucid dreams and actually solve business challenges, find creative ways to solve problems, learn new languages. So for those of you that are like, yeah, I want more time in my day, but I still need to work my ass off, do any lucid dreaming practice, like buy a book on it, learn online. It's not terribly, terribly difficult to do, but it's a great way to get incredible mind space back.
What is lucid dreaming?
It's when you go, you know you're in a dream. So you're dreaming, but you find out that like you wake up in the dream and you're like, oh, cool, I could do whatever I want. Now, most people walk through walls and fly and waste all time doing that. And it's like, no, you can literally be like, how do I solve this marketing challenge in my business? And you could solve it in your dream. And you'd be amazed how much recruitment of the mind you have in those moments.
Wait. So you remember the next day?
That's all part of the practice. Yeah. You have to basically cultivate the awareness. So like I do, basically I'll do like relationship therapy in my dreams. I'll do business challenges from time to time. Sometimes I'll just meditate in my dream, which is amazing.
Wait, it's like you're like working.
Yeah. Do you wake up tired?
You're dreaming.
No, it's the opposite. You wake up like, whoa, I feel jazzed and so refreshed.
Wow.
I've heard lucid dreaming because I guess these nicotine patches people recovering from smoking also get you to lucid dream. And I was thinking about it, but then I heard that it can be kind of hard to sleep after or with. I guess my fear is that then you can have trouble just like doing a regular old sleep where you put your head down and you sleep after experiencing this stuff. Is this true?
No, it's quite the opposite, because to become a good lucid dreamer, you actually learn good sleep etiquette. You actually learn how to be with yourself and manage your own sleep cycles much better. So it takes a real understanding of like, why do I mess my sleep up? Like, don't do nicotine patches in that case. But yeah, it's cool. It's like a practice that if someone...
Do you recommend like a book, or how would you recommend someone learn how to do it?
You could check out either Charlie Morley's course on Mind Valley on lucid dreaming if you like online courses, or you could check out, there's a book from Daniel Love. I think it's just called Lucid Dreaming. Daniel Love's book is like more of like a practical, tactical guide for the CEO mind. That's like, I don't want the spiritual stuff. I just want to get into the meat and potatoes. So I think both of those are great angles. I mean, it has so many far-reaching effects well beyond that I don't want to take up the rest of whatever amount of time we have. But it is probably the most important thing I've ever done for myself as a leader.
Wow. Wow. What a great place to end. Nik, thanks so much for coming on. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you, guys.
The water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secrets.